How's it going? Dr. Mike Trubetskov here, the mad scientist of metal. Like this bass tone and wanna sound good on bass? Then keep watching this video, man, as I will walk you through what I've done in order to achieve this. Now look, bass is often overlooked in metal for some interesting reason. Who wants to hear bass anyways? You know what, I do actually, because I think that bass gives the ballsiness to the mix. It extends the frequency response of the guitars, and it blends with the rhythm section, with the kicks, and it adds the groove and punch and movement, and the spongy sort of aggressiveness that we all wanna hear. If we mute bass from best metal mixes, power will disappear. So, I personally think, and my personal approach as a producer, mixing engineer, recording engineer, is to use a fair bit of bass and record it well. Because guess what? If you do not pay enough attention to recording bass properly, it will fall off, as anything else that we do. So, let's have a look at how this has been recorded, and let's have a look at how to dial good bass tones. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. I am not a bass player. My right-hand technique isn't great, and I do not play bass often most. I'm a guitarist, so obviously take this with a grain of salt. My performance isn't the best, and I had to edit more of it. But I think this is relevant to some of you who are also guitarists looking to record bass for your own tracks. But let's go through this process and let's see what we can do to achieve the good bass tone. So, in order to keep things simple, I just recorded bass directly into my interface. No fancy dark glass bass head used, although you obviously get results faster with good bass amp. But we're talking about recording bass on budget, at home, with good results. So let's do that. So grab a bass. Mine is Greco from Japan. Needs a bit of a service, still sounds good. Plug it into your interface directly. Make sure it makes sound. Next, you want to make sure that your DI level is set correctly. So you can see that my level sitting at -6 at the max when I hit it hard, and it does not clip ever, and I don't play that hard either. This is a good indication that you are setting it correctly. Don't set it too low. Too low is this. You can see that the meter is barely moving, it is very quiet, therefore your signal to noise ratio is not going to be the best, so you will struggle to pull that tone up. And don't put it too high, so that you have this annoying red clip, which means that you're losing signal. Play it safe, somewhere here, maybe a bit more. Yeah, and you're set. And this is not a video about how to record DI, so if you need more details, I can make one. Just hit me up in comments as well. So you've set up your input level correctly. Let's hear the instrument and see what is the best position on the instrument itself so that the DI sounds the best. Twist some knobs, these ones. Have a bit of a listen. I don't like that. This isn't bad. Middle position is the best. These ones. I hate that. It's woolly. This is better. Now, obviously, you know your instrument better. You know what position it sounds the best at. And to be fair, I even don't know what these do, some of them. I know that one blends the second pickup into the mix, and the other switches single coil into a full coil. But honestly, I couldn't be more ignorant. I just don't care, because I can hear what I like and I can hear what I don't like, and I just go for it. That's it. So I would assume that you can do the same thing, but just spend some time experimenting and twisting this until you hear what you like the most. Once that's set, next step is to decide whether you want to use compression on the way in or not. Now, this step is somewhat advanced, and if you have any doubts, if you don't have enough experience with compressors, just skip that. I'm gonna show you how I use compressor on the way in to smoothen up my performance, my my crappy performance with right hand not being at its best. Let's have a look quickly. So here in Universal Audio, I'm just using a legacy 1176 compressor. I'm using the minimum ratio, which is 4:1. You should use the lowest ratio possible. If you have 1.5:1 or 2:1, this is gonna provide good results. And I'm using fast attack and fast release so that I can smoothen up my performance. Now let's play a bit. You can see I'm just tickling this needle, and it kind of smoothens up the heavy attack that happens when you play bass. And this is the goal. If you're having something like this is too much. Having something like this is too little. So just to smoothen up the top of your performance, the top of the peaks, the right hand a little bit, is what you want. Now, on to the actual bass performance. It seems that recording bass is easier than recording guitars. And indeed, you only record one track per song rather than 2 or more guitar tracks. This is indeed easier. You don't need to sync bass up with another take. However, because it seems easier, some of you guys overlook and do not pay enough attention to bass performance. And that's not great. So let's have a look at how I tracked this bass here. We can have a listen at this single take that I've done. And as I mentioned, it's not the best. I'm not the best bass player in the world. But for educational purposes, this is good. Have a listen. Okay, it's not the best, but it is mostly in time with the drums, or close to be in time, and it feels okay. Power is okay, energy is okay, delivery is okay. However, if we dive into the details, that's where problems become apparent. Let's have a look. Solo the bass with a click. Have a listen. That note is a bum note. Straight away, this is not great, it's not present. And I mean, you may think that this would be hidden behind the wall of guitars and the wall of drums and vocals and everything. And it would be indeed. This wouldn't be as prominent in the mix because heavy mixes are busy. However, if you skip such details, it will accumulate and your performance would not be as good. Have a look what I would do in this case. So, I recorded this bass many times, let's say 20 times, because I'm not the best. And I encourage you to record bass multiple times across each fragment, so that you have takes to select from. And in Logic, you have those easy playlists from which you can comp the best fragments. This is still not great. This is not great. And this is good now. See, now it is clean. The note became clean. Don't like this one either. This was much worse in this previous take. Still not great. Not great. Not great. There we go. So you get an idea. You go through the whole performance until you hear bum notes, unpronounced notes, notes that are out of time. For instance, here. This is simply weak performance. And now this is stronger. And so you go through and make sure that you clean up your take by comping it throughout all the other takes and creating a composite. If I roll back to my edited version, here we are. See, I've cleaned up all these little things until I was happy. And you will quickly find the pace at which you are happy. You just have to do it. And I encourage you so much to dwell into this. Do not forget about the dynamics and the consistency of your right hand, be it picking or using your fingers as well. This is also often overlooked in a hope that bass would be compressed so much that your dynamics don't matter. Guess what it does? And your compressors would work less and would not be as harmful, and it would not introduce any artifacts if you pick more consistently. So when editing, find the best beats that are right hand consistent and dynamic consistent as well. Now to the part that you all want to hear so much, sound production. This step somewhat extends to mixing, and you don't necessarily have to perform all of this. However, it helps to come up with sounds that you aim to use in the mixing, whether you are mixing or someone else is. So this is helpful in terms of understanding what happens next. Let's have a look. So here's the edited project for the same bass line in which I came up with a few sounds. Let's go through each and see what I've done. Starting with the bass DI. So this is obviously intact. Supply bass DI unprocessed as it is. However, if you do aim to process it in the mix, I use a bit of a compression. Again, this time around, not heavy compression, because I don't aim for this to be my final mixing stage. I'm using somewhat fast attack, somewhat fast release to smoothen it out, and I'm not taking too much, a couple of decibels without. See, it becomes firmer and kind of more consistent. So not much of it. Again, you don't have to do it if you don't know how to use compression that well. And then next, for the bass DI, there's a bit of a trick which I learned from Christian Kohle, a plugin of whom I'm using in this example as well. And that trick is use IR for your bass DI in the mix, and it will sound better. So I'm using just an Ampeg without any processing here. Without. Now with. See, it changes the sound a fair bit, becomes a bit warmer and a bit thicker on the low end, and gets rid of that annoying sibilance of the string noise, which is good. That's about it. And you, as I mentioned before, you don't have to do that. This is kind of complementary. The other two layers that I'm going to use are important. To come up with this, you copy your DI track without any processing, create a new track, call it bass amp. Focus on that now. For the bass amp, you can use any plugin that you like. There are free ones. For instance, there is Amplitude by IK Multimedia. It's freeware and it sounds decent. I don't have that much of free plugins because I'm just using this UAD one, and I find it to be quite great. But I'm sure there are a lot of options for you these days, so don't worry about what you're using. Just find something that you like. So have a listen to this. DI, amp. Again, twist some knobs until you like what you're hearing. In this case, I like how it becomes a bit gritty and a bit gnarly, and it extends the low end as well. And this is the amp sim of Ampeg with yet another cab impulse response, which is helpful. The important bit though, once you've created this sort of plugin, it is super important to understand whether your DI and amp are actually in phase. Because if not, have a listen. See, something kinda disappears from that mix. What happens is phase cancellation. If one cab impulse response is out of phase with another, they would cancel each other and cancel important frequencies that would disappear and make your bass sound super thin. Now, how to understand whether this is happening or not? Simple trick. I send bass DI and bass amp into a bus, which is bass out, and I use a correlation meter plugin in Logic. If you don't use Logic, there are options for you. There is Hoffa, goniometer, and correlator plugin, which provides the same thing. So in this instance, your phase relationship is demonstrated, and if this goes to the right, you are in phase, and if it goes to the left, you are out of phase. In order to understand this, you have to pan your bass tracks left and right. See? Your correlation meter shows that we are out of phase. Now, if we flip phase on the bass amp by using this phase invert feature in the gain plugin, now we move into the correct range. That's all. Sounds a bit sophisticated, where it isn't really. Make sure that you return your panning to the center. And now this is in phase. And this is out of phase. See how it sounds weird and weak at the same time? That's about it. So just have to make sure that your bass tracks that you create by multiplying your DI are in phase with each other. That's it. Super simple. And finally, I also compress my bass amp a little bit with the same parameters as DI, just the threshold is a bit higher. Almost don't compress it. Super low compression. Again, don't have to do it if you don't 100% know what you're doing with the compressor. And finally, I like to use bass distortion. For this, I'm using this Mammoth plugin by Christian Kohler, but you can use anything really. This emphasizes the mids and lets the bass to pierce through the mix. If you don't have that plugin, you can use anything Stompbox sort of distortion. Let's have a listen how that sounds. Now this one isn't great because it muddens up the low end, which isn't great. Let's try another one. This isn't too bad, but look again, experiment with what you have and find something that doesn't mudden up your low end and still provides cool presence and bite. It's just a preset basically, which I've modified a little bit. Once you've come up with distortion that you like, make sure that you check whether it is in phase with your bass DI as well. Same method, and it isn't. Flip that phase. Problem solved. And then the other thing that I like to do with bass distortion is to boost an area between 1 and 1.5 kilohertz. So in this instance, this area here. It kind of makes it a bit even more gnarly and moves it forward. And then you just blend them in. DI, amp. That's it. If you want to go one step further and actually somewhat mix your bass, then you can apply some processing onto your bass bus. Let's do that quickly. So I used this acoustic audio Camel EQ and compressor without. Just pretty much makes it a bit better. I've added more low end, got rid of annoying mid-range, the honky frequencies, in this case 500 Hertz, and a bit more presence here, but nothing over the top. And then I compressed it a little bit too. And with that, just experiment if you're mixing your track. See what works and what doesn't. But don't go overboard with compression and limiting, because then you can get rid of cool dynamics that you have actually taken care of during the recording process. So this is it for quickly working on your bass tone and producing good results. Don't really need to overcomplicate things here. This is the method, it works, and then it's just a matter of mixing that bass and maybe adding another bass amp emulation, obviously compressing these tracks properly and EQing them a little bit as well. And that's about it. No need to make it too complex, man. Easy. Do your tracking well. Start with a good bass tone. Make sure that you polish it up and come up with good recording take, a composite of many, and be done with it. Let me know what you think. If you need any help, hit me up in comments, private message, whatever is convenient. And until next time, keep rocking.